Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Hope all of you out there are having a great start to your week on this Monday. Coming up here on the show, my final Niners 53-man roster projection, taking a look at which players I think are going to make the Niners' initial 53-man roster following preseason play. And let's set the table with this, just some useful information for everybody out there and all of the real ones who are rocking and rolling with us on this Monday. All NFL teams have to trim down their rosters from 90 players to 53 players by 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific on Tuesday. A lot of teams over the last couple of days after the finale of their preseason schedules have already started to get ahead of this and release some players. There are 16 practice squads that can be fulfilled. So practice squad spots that can be fulfilled. And that does not count the International Pathway Program players. So basically a team can have 17 practice squad members. Isaac Alarcon, the offensive line, a part of the Niners International Pathway Program. He is most likely going to be on the Niners practice squad as the 17th member of it. Before we dive into my Niners 53-man roster projection, be sure to subscribe to us here on the San Francisco 49ers Report for shows coming your way every single day that are insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking, that involve you, the Niner gang, but also when the Niners announce their initial roster tomorrow, we look ahead to the 2024 season right here on the show, and we'll do a deep dive on that squad. So hit that subscribe button right now. Quarterback position. Let's begin there because that's the obvious starting point. In years prior, we have seen Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch only have two quarterbacks on the initial 53-man roster. But because the Niners' backup quarterback situation is in such a good spot, I think San Francisco goes with three QBs here. Brock Purdy as the starter. I think Joshua Dobbs has played better than Brandon Allen and gives the Niners a little bit more athleticism, dual threat ability, and more of a dynamic threat at that quarterback spot with a bad offensive line as compared to Allen. I will say that going into training camp, going into the preseason, I had my eyes peeled on the backup quarterback situation because I was a little bit skeptical of the QB2 options. But I thought Dobbs and Allen both played very well. Dobbs can extend plays and make plays in an improvisational way out of structure a little bit better than Allen, who gets the ball out on time, accurately, and in rhythm, which Kyle Shanahan, of course, likes as part of this offense. But I think you have to keep all three here. Another possibility is that the Niners trade Joshua Dobbs to another team that has a bad backup quarterback situation. Keep that in mind. Back to the practice squad, Tanner Mordecai. We did not see him a lot in the preseason. I think that was by design for players like Tanner Mordecai and Mason Pline, because the Niners didn't want to allow those players to put a lot on tape to impress other teams so that other teams would sign those players. Let's flip the page to the running back situation, and I think the Niners have one of the deeper running back rooms in the National Football League. Christian McCaffrey coming off NFL Offensive Player of the Year honors. I think Jordan Mason has to be a part of the offensive approach this year. He's too good to simply keep on the sideline. He's good for 5 to 6 yards per pop anytime he gets his hands on the rock, and he runs in such a physical manner that I think that can be a really dynamic weapon for this Niners offense this year. Elijah Mitchell is going to make this team, even though he continues to stay injured. More on him in a moment. Isaac Guerendo will be this team's kick returner week 1, in my opinion. The 93-yard return against the Raiders sealed that deal. And his blend of power, size, physicality, balance, and speed is really impressive. Kyle Juszczyk, this team's lone fullback, and then Cody Schrader didn't have many opportunities to do much throughout the preseason, so he goes to the practice squad. I don't think he will be poached by another team, and he will clear waivers. The Niners earlier today on this Monday releasing Matt Breida. I think they got ahead of that to allow him to maybe latch on with another team, and I think that guarantees that Elijah Mitchell is going to make this 2024 initial 53-man roster for San Francisco. Wide receiver, some questions here because we don't know what's going to happen with Brandon Aiyuk. And CeeDee Lamb just got a massive contract from the Dallas Cowboys. He got $100 million in guaranteed money, according to reports, and $34 million average annual value. Will Brandon Aiyuk take less than 30? I'm not sure he will. And if that's the case, are the Niners now forced to trade him away? Will he be on this team? As of right now, I have him on the 53-man roster as this team's number one wideout, and I think this offense has not looked the same during the preseason without Aiyuk as compared to him being on the field. So I hope the Niners find a way to get that deal done. Deebo Samuel, number 2 wideout on this team. Jauan Jennings, the number 3. And then you have 2 rookies making the squad, and Jacob Cowing, who's really impressed the last 2 preseason games, both as a receiver and as a returner. And then Ricky Pearsall expected to return to practice today with that shoulder subluxation. He makes the 53. Has to, obviously, because he was a first-round pick. And then Chris Conley gives this team some juice on special teams, and he had a really good training camp as a wideout. He is the 6th and final wide receiver to make my squad. To the practice squad, Ronnie Bell, if he does clear through waivers, another team might like him, and they might sign him to their 53-man roster. I think Robbie Chosen can get brought back to the practice squad, and this signals the end for Danny Gray, another missed third-round pick by this current regime. The tight end situation is really interesting. I could honestly see San Francisco going with only 2 tight ends, George Kittle and Eric Saubert. But Brayden Willis and Cam Latu are 2 young players going into year 2 who I think San Francisco might prioritize keeping. Willis helps you on special teams. Latu can help you on special teams as a blocker and in coverage. And Latu really started to come on the last couple of weeks in practice, and he actually finally, and I mean finally, showed me something as a pass catcher in that preseason finale against the Raiders. So I think Latu makes the team. You have to justify him making it as a former third-round pick and him improving. Still a questionable pass catcher, but he's at least made some improvements. It also wouldn't shock me if Jake Tonges makes the squad as a tight end. He got some early run in these preseason games, so he's a dark horse candidate to make the 53. And then just like I talked about with Tanner Mordecai and I mentioned Mason Pline, we saw him once, and it was on that 4th down, that little fade ball in the back of the end zone against the Raiders when the Niners threw it up to Mason Pline. He's a former basketball player who athletically looks the part, and I think there was a design, there was a thought process behind the Niners not playing him in the preseason. They want to develop Mason Pline, and the Niners have done a good job of developing tight ends, and I think he goes back to the practice squad, Tonges as well, if he doesn't make the 53. Offensive line. You're starting 5, and of course, like the Aiyuk situation, we'll see what happens with Trent Williams. Jeremy Fowler reporting on Monday morning that the plan for Williams is to continue to hold out without a new deal. So I'm going to have him on the initial 53, but if he continues to hold out, he won't count toward the 53, which opens up another roster spot for San Francisco. This is all very fluid. But Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Dominick Puni, and the worst starting right tackle in the National Football League right now, Colton McKivitz, you're starting 5. Jaylon Moore is going to be the backup left tackle. I know Chris Hubbard and Brandon Parker were trained over the last couple of weeks to be swing tackles, but I still think the Niners go with Jaylon Moore. He's been with this team over the last couple of years. Spencer Burford is your backup right guard because John Feliciano out until the midway point of the season with the knee surgery. Jarrett Kingston played very well during the preseason, a 6th-round pick that you want to continue to develop. And I wouldn't mind the Niners cutting Nick Zackelj. He got bulldozed and bullied, filling in for Aaron Banks at left guard, but because Aaron Banks is coming off that pinky surgery, you kind of are pigeonholed into having to keep Nick Zackelj. Not included here is Drake Nugent. Another team might try to sign him as a backup center. I think he's capable of being a backup center and at some point a future starting center. So hopefully the Niners can find a way to bring Nugent back because I think that he can become a good player as well. We're taking a look at this 2024 Niners team. Isn't that awesome? If you're pumped up for some San Francisco football, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. We'll talk defense coming up just around the corner, but first, let's tell you about our friends at Game Time, the presenting sponsor for today's San Francisco 49ers report. With Game Time, there are so many different functions that I love about this app. The Game Time picks, the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and more. There's the all-in pricing tool, and if you toggle this, it shows you your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, which I hate. The ticketing apps just hit you with those surprise fees at the end. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Game Time has a lowest price guarantee, and if you can't find better prices elsewhere, or if you do find better prices elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. I also really like their ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Still plenty of tickets available for Jets-Niners Monday Night Football in Week 1. Tickets as low as $208. And when I talk about seeing the views from your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, Section 132, Row 6, you're paying $551 for those tickets, all-in pricing, no surprise fees, but then you see what you'll be seeing from those seats and the price point. If you want the aerial view to look down at Levi's Stadium because you're very particular about which level or yard line you like to sit on or at, that is also an option. San Francisco Giants tickets available too as they try to make a push in the National League playoffs. So download the app for free, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS. Terms apply, first purchase only. All that information available for you down in the comment section and attached to the pinned comment of today's show, $20 off your purchase. I'm going to go with 8 defensive linemen for San Francisco, and historically under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, the Niners have held on to 10, but this gives you a little bit of roster flexibility at linebacker and corner, which we're about to get to, in addition to wide receiver, and you still go too deep along the defensive line. I don't think this is a longevity and sustainable way of building your football team, but this is also the initial 53-man roster. So the starting Niners defensive line, Nick Bosa, Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd. Your backups, Yetur Gross-Matos, Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, and Robert Beal Jr. Leonard Floyd is day-to-day with the sprained knee. Yetur Gross-Matos is week-to-week. If he has to go on IR to start the year, that could change things in the trenches along the defensive line. To the practice squad, when the Niners signed Evan Anderson as a UDFA, they pretty much gave him practice squad money. So they liked the player, and I think that Anderson can be a decent developmental interior defensive lineman. And then Alex Barrett had a nice preseason play a couple of weeks ago with that strip sack, and he could make this practice squad too. He could also make the 53-man roster if you take away a player from a different position. But Niners are deep at linebacker, and they're deep at corner. And when you think about this linebacking room, I think that Dre Greenlaw is not going to be able to come back until late in the year. So he's not going to occupy a roster spot for San Francisco. But the starting off-ball linebackers will be Fred Warner and Devondre Campbell. Campbell played well in the preseason, made a couple of really disruptive plays. Demetrius Flanagan fouls combined with Jair Brown for that forced fumble against the Raiders, and you know that he can be a really good special teams player. You have 2 intriguing young linebackers in D. Winters and Jalen Graham, who you want to continue to develop and have as part of your football organization. And I think that Curtis Robinson played so well in training camp in the preseason that he earned a spot on this 53-man roster, and he can contribute on special teams as well. And the special teams units for San Francisco in coverage, a little bit of a question mark. Who do we not have here? 7th-round pick out of Florida State, Tatum Bethune. It is a risk to have him go through waivers because he's an instinctual player who plays with good feel, good play speed. He's also a physical and disruptive player. I hope that the Niners can bring him back because I think that he could be a rotational, maybe even a starting linebacker at some point in his NFL career. Same situation with cornerback. I think the Niners have to go with 6. They could honestly go with 7 if they really needed to. Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, your top 2 corners. You have the second-round pick Renardo Green, who played and performed well in the preseason. Isaac Yiadom, we didn't get to see him because he was injured, but he's a really talented corner coming off a really good year when he filled in nicely for Marshawn Lattimore. You have Rock Ya-Sin, who consistently made plays on the football in training camp and in the preseason. He's a former second-round pick and a veteran who I think earned himself a roster spot. And then Darrell Luter Jr. had some decent moments in coverage, but he can help out on special teams. If you want to go with 7 corners, you have Samuel Womack making this team. You can never have enough young corners on your squad. But I just think that the Niners should go with 6 here and then have Samuel Womack back on the practice squad if he clears waivers. And then to safety, only going with 3. A little bit of a risk to start, but I think that you can get away with this at least week 1. Jair Brown, George Odom, who is also one of your special teams aces, and then Malik Mustafa, the rookie. Talanoa Hufanga hasn't returned to practice. So if you put him on PUP, you open up a roster spot. He does have to miss the first 4 weeks of the regular season, but he also tore his ACL in November. I know his goal was to be ready for week 1, but that's quickly approaching. And then lastly, your specialists, Mitch Wishnowsky as your punter. He does have a heftier cap hit than Presley Harvin. But Presley Harvin released on Monday after having a really good training camp. I think the Niners did that early so that he can maybe latch on with another team. Jake Moody, the kicker, Tabor Pepper, the long snapper, and then your return men, Jacob Cowing, I think has earned the right to be the punt returner week 1, even as a rookie, and Isaac Guerendo, the week 1 kick returner. So a couple of rookies going to have roles in my eyes for San Francisco here in 2024. Always important to replenish the youth. Before we hop on out of here, grade this Niners roster, A, B, C, D, or F. Sound off with what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll be back later with another show right here on the channel.